Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, yeah, you are audible. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sia. I welcome you all to the 10th monthly online guest lecture organized by the research scholars of the School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies at Goa University. Our speaker and guest for today is Dr. Rajshri Jobanputra, Head FocusU Academy at FocusU Engage, Bengaluru, India, and her talk is titled Leaving the Ivory Tower. Before we begin, I would like to inform all the participants that the event, along with the contents in the chat box, is being recorded. All the participants are requested to keep their microphones on mute throughout the lecture, which will go on for about 60 minutes, after which there will be a Q&A session. I now request Mr. Sagar Yadav to kindly introduce the speaker and give the welcome address. Over to you, Sagar.
Am I audible here?
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies, Goa University, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome the eminent personality and speaker for today's session, Dr. Rajshri Jobanputra. Dr. Rajshri is a Ph.D. in philosophy from IIT Bombay, with academic and industry experience spanning over 15 years. Beginning her career as an assistant resource person at IIM Ahmedabad, Dr. Rajshri moved on to IIT Roorkee as lecturer and later to IIT Madras as an assistant professor of philosophy. Realizing early on that her passion for teaching and learning could be extended to learners beyond undergrad engineering students, she joined Wipro Technologies and Tata Management Training Centers. With her expertise in the area of behavioral training and management consulting, prior to joining FocusU Engage as head partner relations at KNOLSKAPE Solutions, Dr. Rajshri was responsible for end-to-end empaneling and upskilling of independent and enterprise L&D partners across India, APAC, Europe, Middle East, and US regions. Dr. Rajshri has also carried out numerous workshops of different formats across various industries, geographies at management levels. A certified Dale Carnegie trainer who also holds a Cambridge International Certificate for Teachers and Trainers from Cambridge University, UK. Dr. Rajshri takes keen interest in the area of modern workplace skills, experiential learning, and digital learning experience. Her simplistic approach to life is depicted in her insistence on the importance of good health, mind, body, and soul, and she believes in doing things that keep all of these in balance. We welcome you, Madam Dr. Rajshri. It's a privilege to have you here. We also welcome and thank Professor Koshi Sir, Dean of our School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies at Goa University, and other faculty members at the school, Professor Sanjot, Dr. Walter Rajbi, for their presence in the event. Sia, you can carry on.
Thank you, Sagar. I now request Professor Koshi Tarakan, Dean and Head, School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies, to kindly say a few words.
Thanks, Sia. Actually, Sagar has given a very, detailed introduction of the speaker, so I don't have to introduce her further. But let me also share with you all, because many of you are part of Goa University, that Dr. Rajshri, before moving to IIT Bombay, was with us at Goa University. She did her master's in philosophy, MA in philosophy, if I remember correctly, in 1995 batch. She did it, and she was a gold medalist of that batch in 1995 MA philosophy. Some of you, when you come to the class, you can just take a look at the wall on your right side of the classroom, where the roll of honor is there, where you can see along with Professor Sanjot's maiden name, you can see also, and also Dr. Walters, you can see also Dr. Rajshri. So she's our former student of the department, and we are so proud that Rajshri has moved ahead from academics to even other less explored avenues for a philosopher. But thinking from a different perspective, I find this is what actually Plato envisaged. During Plato's time, perhaps the rulers were actually the monarchs, the king. So Plato had the image of the philosopher king. But now that we are into a global market economy, which guides our lives, I think Rajshri, literally took to heart Plato's advice and moved to the ruling class of the corporate world. So from philosophy to the corporate world. So I find it's a very conventional move that Rajshri made within philosophy. So I won't take much time. We are all eager to listen to Dr. Rajshri. So let me once again welcome on behalf of my colleagues and students and other faculty from Goa University. There are also my colleagues from other departments. I welcome you all. Yes, back to you, Sia. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Koshi. I now invite Dr. Rajshri Jobanputra to kindly proceed with her presentation.
Thank you, Sia. Thank you, Sagar. And thank you, Professor Koshi. I think I couldn't have asked for a better start for this conversation and this presentation. So thank you so much. For me, that scroll that you mentioned about on the wall, I mean, this is news to me. I did not know about it. So a trip to Goa University campus definitely is in the offing for me, definitely. That's something I haven't seen myself. So thank you so much for bringing it up. And yes, the departures that I have made from hardcore academics to coming into the corporate world, it is laden with lots of reasons and probably some choices that I have made. And I thought, let's also kind of take our audience today to see that journey and see what all is possible and why all it is possible as well. One of the reasons why I have chosen the title for today's talk, especially because of what you mentioned, it's always about philosophy and being in the ivory tower. At one point in time, I was elated. But then things changed, and that is why the title, Leaving the Ivory Tower. So let me share my presentation, and this is such a corporate thing, I feel, without a PPT, no presentation is complete. So, but it is definitely not a 100-slider presentation. Thankfully, I don't have the appetite for that. So let me just share my screen for now, and maybe then I can do a little bit of conversation around it. Can some of you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen from the group?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Cool. So this is all about leaving the ivory tower, but then the leaving part comes from something that has happened prior to it, right? And that is going to the ivory tower. So what transpired in the time, and that's what my journey has been. And then probably I leave you with some thoughts that has brought me here where I am today. I don't want any rules and any regulations at this point in time. If ever you feel that you want me to kind of pause and address something, please feel free to unmute and just ask me that. At the same time, you think how my story is interesting and you want to listen till the end, till I finish the narration, I'm fine with that as well. So this is the only rule I would say we can use for this presentation. So let me just start with a small story about how this is one of the basic principles that has ruled my life technically, philosophically, and everything. This was my BA third year class, and this was a senior Professor Afonso's, brother teaching that class was Western philosophy. Somewhere around the conversation, so the question emerged, and he asked, "So, what do you think is philosophy?" And I said, "A way of life." And even for the life of me, I don't know why I asked that, why I answered it like that. But eventually it so happened, and that happened to be a true thing. In its barest form, philosophy is said to be a way of life, how we choose to live. And for me, this is that one principle that ships are not made for the harbor. Ships are made to be in that ocean and to kind of, take on those waves and enjoy that entire, thing for which it has been built for. So for me, philosophy is kind of getting anchored into one way of life. And this has been mine. And all throughout the presentation, you will see that this has been one of the key reasons why, the kind of checkered life that I've had so far, professionally speaking, that's because I have used this principle and taken this principle to the heart of everything that I have achieved. So with that, let me just kind of give you a little bit of background so that you know why I'm making so big a hue and cry about leaving the Ivory Tower. So the first thing, and well, we were all part of Goa, and Goa is known to be, that Western culture and very progressive and everything. I have a little bit of a different background, or so I think. Yeah. So first of all, did I have a background of very educated parents and coming with great degrees? Absolutely not. Did I have any kind of family background which had education in its, background? Absolutely not. No grandparents, no parents, no nothing. Was I the son of the family? Obviously, no. I was not that as well. Did I come from a very economically well-to-do family background? Absolutely not. So it was, I still remember in Altino, that's where my house was, the first one. It was a mud house. While Altino was said to be one very posh at one point in time, there was this one mud house that we used to live in. Did I belong to any kind of a progressive community? What do I mean by progressive community? Where the thoughts are very open and stuff like that? Well, probably not, because I don't know how many of you know, I belong to a Gujarati family. Yeah, and Gujaratis by and large are very conventional or conservative, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago for that matter. Yeah, so that is also something which I did not have working in my favor. Did I have all the freedom of choice and resources available? Absolutely not. Why? Because it goes back to having a very nice, flourishing economic background or an educated. Nothing. I don't even know if I ever had books in my house. The only other book that I remember once, much later, somewhere around 8th standard or 9th standard, other than textbook, there was one book or a couple of books around Tinkle. I don't know how many of you will remember that Tinkle. And then, of course, did I have privileges of technology? Of course, that time, absolutely not. Until even when I reached IIT Bombay, nothing of that sort. So absolutely nothing in favor of me at that point in time. And obviously, with nothing so much in your background, how is it that you kind of, do the things that you do? I have a little bit of a scenario over here. And I want to take you through that scenario as well, so that you know that, well, it doesn't really matter, where do you kind of start off with, very technically speaking. Yeah, it's how you end up where you end up. So let me just take you over here, making it to the Ivory Tower. So all of this was absolutely not there, and some things happen, and I'll tell you what those things were with me. So here's a fun part. To complete my BA, and that is, there was an effort that I had to put. And for my BA, I went to Bombay College. Now, there was a lot of influencing that had to happen with my father, because by that time it was very clear that girls don't study. We are a Gujarati family, and everything by that time, 22, 23, everybody has to get married. So it was a big thing for me to kind of influence, cook good stuff every day so that I could influence my father. And if he would like something, he would allow me to do my BA. The one very funny reason, once upon a time, I remember he gave, oh, you will travel from Tanjung to Miramar. This was like roughly like 3 kilometers at that point in time. But so much of influencing went in there, you won't believe. So far, so good. And I was like, okay, fine, this is all right. But BA, I did well. Because I knew that if I would have to be a very lackadaisical kind of a student, very clearly, I would not get to go ahead. So I made sure I kind of really scored well, and that's when the MA part happened. Now my father freaked out even further. He is like, oh my God, all the way from Miramar to Dhanapala, you want to go? Oh my God, university is so far, da da da. But by that time, this time I had a new stakeholder, and that was my mother. Many of you, I don't know whether it makes sense or not, I had to negotiate with my mother. I said, okay, fine. If you're worried about who will do the chores of the house, I will cook and then I will go. And once I'm back, I will cook dinner. And that was the negotiation I did with my mother. Nothing to do with any form of, okay, fine, yes, education is very important. Please go ahead, pursue it, hear everything and everything. No. That was the negotiation. So every day, and I don't know, Sanjot ma'am is there in the class. I don't know how much of it she knew at that point in time that I just finished cooking and coming to the class. But this was my reality for full long years, and that's how things happened. But then out of the blue, and that's when one of my friends suggested, why don't we just go and do our PhD in Bombay? I was like, hey, what is all this? I'm not going to sing. And you think my father will let me go blind? I did all that kahani. But to my utter surprise, he said, anyways, let's try it out. And I said, oh, what big deal. Okay, forget it. I somehow managed my father to say, we'll just give exams and come back. We went all the way to Bombay, did our exam. And for the life of me, I was not at all sure that I would crack those exams. And that time, there were two rules at that point in time where we had to do a written exam to qualify for a PhD program. And then there was a interview. And imagine you are in that scenario where all the big stalwarts are sitting and are interviewing you about Russell and Wittgenstein and everything. And I was like, oh my God, it was one of the scary moments, but universe had other plans and it all got done. And now imagine this. I would have very clearly kind of deducted based on inductive logic, I would have deducted it by now. Because I have always faced resistance. My father will say, no big deal. But guess what? No drama. And because of all that, he said, fine, go ahead and do your stuff. And I was having withdrawal symptoms. My father didn't react. He did not resist. He did not create any kind of drama. I was very surprised. And that's why the title of this slide. You plan something, you think something, but the rest of the universe has something else planned for you. I was shocked. And even today, I have no answer why there was no drama in the house. What that bit. And that's when, I moved out, 1996, I moved out and something else happened and I cleared UGC as well, which meant I did not have to take money from home. But guess what? The first time I gave UGC, I was in Goa University. I did not clear. But the moment I stepped out and it got cleared, and I was like, wow, what is happening? And I have since then become a firm believer that while you can keep planning and should plan, I'm a big believer of planning as well. There is something nice that the universe plans. Don't underestimate. So far, all great stuff happening, and I am at the peak of my life. I feel I have cracked some things. I have a scholarship and all that fun things happening to me. And eventually, then I said, okay, great. I did all my 5 years there, met some good people, had some good stuff, and then made choices. The first choice was, of course, because I had scholarship, I ended up doing a little bit of teaching there as part of a teaching assistant. But then soon I ran out of stipend, but not out of completing my PhD. So that's when I became a content analyst. And I would go somewhere in some, best bus from Bombay and joined a market research firm. Imagine, okay, you have done Wittgenstein, you have done Russell, and you have done speech act theory, and you have all of that, Quine and everybody, and suddenly you're doing content analysis and you're doing market research. For the life of me, if it was not that I wanted to complete my PhD, probably I would not have taken up the job. But wait till how this all ties back to the rest of my life. Very surprising. Of course, then PhD finished, I go to IIM Ahmedabad. It was a big break in my life because then I became an associate person, fresh PhD, and I was somewhere influenced by, a couple of things that I wanted to do in counseling. philosophical counseling. Okay, that's where I kind of thought that no, I wanted to be in that space where I wanted to do counseling. And this was a break that gave me that kind of a counseling, what would I say, exposure in a great way. So psychometric assessments to kind of management principles, which I had to take up as part of this particular role. So I had to sit with PGP students of IIM Ahmedabad and audit certain courses. And look how the universe works for you. All of that was almost like preparing me for where I had to reach one fine day. And this is all 2004, mind you. All that happens, then I say, okay, fine, but then I have to make some kind of justice, or do justice rather, to the degree that I have. And then 2004, when I defended my thesis, I got a break with IIT Roorkee and I started to teach one subject for 3 years. One subject, Western philosophy, introduction. And I got exhausted. I said, no. And Roorkee, I don't know how many of you have been there. It is at the north of everything. Absolutely a beautiful place. One of the oldest campuses, 150 years when I joined that time. That particular university had finished that. 150 years. So beautiful campus, absolutely gorgeous, but absolutely for a fresh PhD, that's not a place for me, I thought. But I stayed there 3 years. I had a ball of a time being a teacher now, not a student anymore. Lovely, awesome, brilliant students doing philosophy at 8 in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, freezing, rain, hot season, whatever it is. Engineering students. And then with engineering students, you have to debate proofs of existence of God. You have to talk about mind-body dualism. You have to talk about free will and determinism. Imagine that. But that was fun. And I have never had better time at that point in time doing conversations with IIT grads. And then, of course, I didn't want to retire from there. So I kind of said, okay, fine. Now next is what? That's when I moved to IIT Madras, got my stuff going, and I realized, wow, I can. And that time they had started MA in Humanities and Social Science department. So it was BTech students, MA students, and PhD students as well, whom you had to guide. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. And this was like, a life I had probably didn't imagine, but had happened to me. But of course, with all of this, there was something brewing at the back end. And that's when I was kind of, by the time I was 1 year into IIT Madras, I was kind of wondering, do I want to stay, not stay, and things like that. And then again, one fine day, I kind of did some bit of analysis, and this is what happened to me. While all this gorgeous, because people see what is in front of you, right? Oh, IIT, whatever that happened. And I was also smitten by it. I won't lie about that. But back end, nobody realizes what's happening. And because I knew a little bit of counseling and all, I kind of took stock of things for myself. So there was a lot of rewards placed on publication versus on teaching. While I enjoyed the teaching and I would bring in new pedagogy and everything, and I had most of my students coming to my class only because of my teaching, publication was something which was rewarded more in the academics than teaching was. This led almost to the fact that, okay, fine, then let me surrender to it, because I had to stay in the ivory tower, right? So, but not grudging. Or so I told the world that I was not grudging about it. But I stayed in the ivory tower. What also was brewing in my mind was kind of relationships that were getting built as part of the social fabric that there was. It became a little more formal. There was competition. It was unpredictable. You really never knew, like, where, how, what was happening with your relationship. With colleagues, with students, at the back end. It was kind of becoming a little bit of complex, which I was trying to figure out. And eventually it almost made me restless. It seemed like everybody found their mojo except me. Everybody was out there getting the groove of things except me. And that's when the third part, the reflection, really hit me strong. And that's when we realized that comparison started coming in my professional life, which I was thinking, this is how it is with them, but these are some things which I enjoy doing, I feel proud about, I want to do. And that's when, you don't want to leave the the ivory tower, so you kindly constantly check ways and means to reboot your system. Sometimes you have to do it so frequently, and sometimes you do it so randomly. So there was a lot that was going on, and I finally thought, where is it that I wanted to head? And that's when the thought of descending the ivory tower came into me. And as luck would have it, and that's why I said, believe in the plan of the universe. One fine day, out of the blue, again, a headhunter calls. And that headhunter was looking for a person with academic background for their project. And that's where Wipro happened to me. And I said, yes. When I announced this news to the rest of my colleagues at IIT Madras, some of them were okay, but I still remember one person just saying, oh, you are not a purist. And I still remember that comment, you are not a purist, because it meant that if I am in that stream, academics was a place for me to stay in. And it was almost like, well, that's a weird ship that I am, I didn't want to stay at the harbor. I just wanted to be in the wild ocean. For all I know, I may regret later, but that's what I wanted to do. And that's when I joined Wipro Technologies, and great going. I mean, I have gone to interiors of Chennai and interiors of Jammu to do programs. And I was fascinated by the kind of teaching and learning that was happening, which I would have never known if I had stayed in the ivory tower. I don't know in hindsight if you're thinking if I'm rationalizing, but that's the great part. And guess what? Then suddenly another kind of life happens. You get married. And then I moved to Malaysia. Now, that was a different struggle in itself. New country, new person to live with, new kind of a life to live with. But anyways, I started doing freelancing at that point in time, because for 3 years in a foreign country, whatever that is. But it was very strange, people think, I don't know how many of you have encountered. But freelancing sometimes got misinterpreted by saying working for free. But of course, I've seen that part as well. You have to be on your own. You get projects, whether it works, it doesn't work, I don't know. That's the gig economy for me at that point in time. But of course, things that doesn't, good or bad, it doesn't last for long. And then eventually I said nothing doing, came back, joined Tata Management Training Center in Pune. I had a good ride there as well, but it was a short stint, because then I moved back to Malaysia. But once we came back from Malaysia, I joined KNOLSKAPE Solutions, and that's where a lot of, what would I say, a lot of learning happened for me technically or technology wise, because suddenly it was not about classroom, the blackboard and the chalk or the PPT, nothing. It was to do with business simulations. It was to do with technology. Sometimes I have done sessions, which was at 4 o'clock in the morning, just using a laptop and a simulation for a crowd which is in North America. And I'm talking about way back in 2013. Just an internet and a laptop and the desire to get into that field of teaching and learning. Learning and development. So that was great for me. And I gave a good 6 years, almost close to 6 years there. And then I did the back end of the role. So in KNOLSKAPE, it was all about front end, talking to clients, doing facilitation, going to different countries to run programs, empaneling people all across the country. And then, now you get at the back end. Now you start creating products and learning products, for that matter, digitally enabled and all of that. So it has been quite a ride. And I believe that, making those choices makes who you are. And that's how leaving the ivory tower has never been such a big regret for me at this point in time. And as I finish and traverse this journey of mine, and when I look back, I thought this is something now when I look back, what are some things that I would want all of you to take with you or see from my eyes? And this last section, I want to share that little bit of me, especially 3 things. If you all are inspired by doing your PhD or doing whatever you all are doing and want to kind of take U-turns in life, or are preparing to kind of, see a different world from what, you have convinced yourself of until now, here's something from my side, from my experience, which I will share with you. I don't know how many of you are aware of this word called gadfly, and whom it is usually used on. Anybody in the chat, if you can tell me without Googling it? Gadfly? Anybody? You can put it in chat if you like. Okay, this word, or rather I would say this very fancy name, is given to Socrates. And for many of us who know Socratic method, and I encountered this in great detail when I was totally smitten by philosophical counseling, and I thought I'm just another female Socrates in the happening. That's an age, right, where you kind of think of all those kind of things. And that's when I realized that a gadfly is that fly on the back of a cow or something, and you will see, the cow will start wagging its tail or using its tail to shoo away the fly. Now imagine it's a metaphor in that sense, because Socrates used to ask this very, in that method that anybody would have heard about, he would ask lots of these questions, and sometimes these questions would probably be very annoying to people because it kind of forced them to think hard. And that's something, because I so very truly believed that everything that, the moment you want to make departures from anything about your life, you have to be your own gadfly. You have to ask those very strange questions, hard-hitting questions, and in the process, stay awake. Yeah. And this is like a couple of things that happened with me. And I'm giving you a small framework, so to speak, that you have to stay woke at all points in time. So it starts with acknowledging it. If you're having a nagging feeling or something that you feel that it's not in place, acknowledge it. For instance, in my case, I was very sure that, while publication is going to take me high up and one day I can become some director of some place, I was very sure that teaching is what I enjoyed more. So I had to acknowledge that particular fact about me. If you have acknowledged it, you have to uncover what is that nagging feeling. And in my example, I said, if I don't know what I want, I should know what is it that I don't want to do. And this is also a gift from one of my classes at Goa University, and this was Professor Sinari. And this was his class in existentialism. We were all discussing the meaning of Dasein. Okay, I don't know how many of you all can relate to this example. And I remember that one instance, and it was getting very confusing, and I'm sure some of you must be facing. How do you actually define Dasein? And he just said that sometimes if you can't, define something, as is, try defining it by saying what it is not. And it was such an aha moment for me that then I started making it like almost my go-to phrase when I wanted to answer a question. If I don't know what I want, at least I should start what I don't. And I knew that I didn't want to continuously be one, nerd doing research very clearly. That's something which I knew I didn't want to do. So how do you action it out? And that's where the whole question comes in. So you know now you don't want to do these things and you arrive at something. So how do you go about it? My biggest take in life has been that you have to find who will promote you for what you desire to be. You have to find your promoters and make chances happen. And when I realized that I wanted to get into that entire L&D space, weird as it may sound, I was in Roorkee at that point in time, and there was this one cultural program, and then some MD or some such person had come from BSNL at that point in time from Dehradun. And somehow we got talking or whatever it is. And then I said, you know what, I'm interested in doing a session and stuff like that. He became my promoter. My first corporate session was with the help of a person who believed and took a chance. But I made that chance happen for me because I was okay to tell him about my desire to do something. He was my promoter at that point in time. And my first session was with BSNL Dehradun. Now, I don't know how that went, or really people would have by now, of course, gone Rajshri and what all that might have happened. But for me, that was the first step I took to action. And lastly, I had to build on it. Just getting that one chance or making that one chance happen, you are not sorted. You have to make it work. And these are exactly those U-turns which need a lot of work, if you are convinced, of course, and it takes a lot of grit. So in the next round, I'll show you what I did, because of which then, the U-turn became the highway for me. Yeah. And these are some few things that I did in building what I thought will never make me shy away from or, hide the decision that I had taken to leave academics. First thing, I went small. I kind of figured out some terminology. Of course, what worked in my favor was the fact that my first job was at IIT Ahmedabad, one of the meccas of, so to speak, management studies. So my terminology came from there. I understood what it meant when people talked about industries and sectors and employee, the management terminology that was there. But very surprisingly, you will not know. When we were doing it, Professor Sanjot can probably verify this. When we were doing MA, the one stairs that went up for us, we had the School of Management Studies there. And for us, every time we went to the canteen, we had these boys and girls who were doing management at that point in time talk about certain things. So basically, for me, because we were like constantly tuned into different other disciplines, it became like a stepping stone for us to get this terminology, to get clarity about that. And mind you, that time we did not have technology, okay? We didn't have phone, we didn't have laptop, nothing. I have written my assignments with pen and paper. So we didn't have Google that time to get this terminology. Okay. Second was, you go horizontal, which means that you start small, but you kind of check out your entire canvas. What is it when you want to get into that entire setup? So once I kind of, realized that this is the place that I wanted to be, there is an entire sea of stuff that corporates are made up of. Right from something people who manage people, right to the fact that there are policies around it, there is something called operations, there is something called customer service. It was mind-blowing. Much into my life, when I joined Wipro, I understood the concept of a person while drawing salary, they were also employees who were billable. I had no clue what billable meant. And that is when the entire IT boom happened. and people from abroad or other, countries would outsource all their IT requirements to India. For each of those specific projects, there used to be a set of employees who would deliver on that project. And that project's estimate would happen on how much one person, senior, junior, whatever it is, what is their cost in this particular project. And that's how a project billing would ever happen. I was billable or not billable. Amazing. I felt so excited, to have come to this side of the world. Very funny that was, but absolutely, exhilarating for me at that point in time. Then I go vertical. Big vertical means you actually then take a deep dive into things. And then I started to see connects between, okay, I have done ethics, I have done epistemology. Sorry about that sound, this is school time at my place, so lots of buses. What it means is whatever you have learned, it doesn't go waste. And ethics is such a big part of businesses, knowledge, and the entire technological aspect of it, how do you manage knowledge? Are there softwares which help you to manage knowledge? All talks about values and how it connects to leadership conversations, to appraisal conversations, to logic, using logic to solve problems. And it became such an interesting, exciting thing. And people would say, how do you think philosophy works? And I, for once, used to think, oh, I wish I could open my brain and show you, see how the connects are happening in my brain. And believe me, it is a fascinating world out there when you are so rooted in concepts, and when you meet the practical life, how easy it becomes for you to connect the two and see the depth of the scenario. Why? Because you have come with an orientation of studying philosophers. Imagine that. And lastly, of course, going big. So you start small, you do a little bit of T version of your knowledge gain, that is vertical and horizontal, and then you go all out and you go all big. I watched people who were awesome in my place. I picked up random assignments. It didn't really matter. I engaged with people who came from different kind of, backgrounds. It didn't matter, whether they were in the area that I was interested in. But I saw all kinds of facilitators, people who engaged with a large audience. I shadowed some of them. And then I took a risk. Very honestly, the risk for me, the big time risk for me, was to do a session independently of anybody sitting in my class and getting a good feedback score. But what really kept me going until now is I stayed Kaizen. I'm sure some of you would have encountered this. This is a Japanese word for always making sure that there is an improvement that you are focused on. Constantly staying Kaizen. It's not because I had a degree from IIT Bombay, my life was sorted. No. Because I had some relieving certificate and an appointment letter from different IIT, I was sorted. No. At every point in time, because that U-turn mattered to me and I wanted that U-turn to become a highway for me, Kaizen is what I had to adopt. Doing certifications, learning, doing assignments, making sure that, I stand evaluation as well. Imagine, after all that, to get a certificate, I had to demonstrate my understanding of it. And there were 10 other people who were judging me and evaluating me. And I had to be okay with it. Big degrees didn't matter at that point in time because my U-turn mattered. So with all that, what did I realize? What really got me going? And I think many of us who are philosophers in this particular classroom, and I hold these 5 virtues very strongly. When I was doing MA, I did not realize it. The whole PhD process has brought that, feeling of pride in being a philosopher. Even today, people misunderstand when I say philosophy, they say, oh, psychology. And I correct them. Not out of the compulsion to correct people, but because I have that pride in me that by orientation, by formal education, I'm a philosopher. And what are these 5 virtues? I will share that with you. There is a component and a skill which is called what is known as critical and analytical thinking. Very highly valued, but something which we take for granted as philosophers. We are constantly, breaking things down and synthesizing the various information that we have and evaluate. And that's one of the biggest strengths. Go any big exams that you want to see. If you don't have this skill, chances are your scores might really be dwindling somewhere. So this is one skill that, a philosopher by orientation can have for sure. The second one, they are open to alternate worldviews. Have you sat with any philosopher and said, okay, this is my strong view, and then you say, okay, let's hear your side of the story as well? Because philosophy is built, the knowledge or the corpus of knowledge is built with debate and cross-examination of ideas. And in corporates, this is very important. You can't say, oh, I have said it and that's about it. No. And it is valued, especially because we are in the era of innovation, and innovation can perpetuate only if we are open to worldviews and different thought processes. My favorite, however, is the rigor that goes into the whole idea of, getting to the core of something, working things out. And if you cannot have rigor, your idea is as fickle as anything that may break and may not sustain. And who can ask questions? And the rigor comes not from accepting ideas, but from asking questions. And there is no other discipline, probably other than science, where scientists ask this question. And that's something which keeps us going. The freedom and the orientation to ask questions. I love philosophy for that. With all of this rigor that we bring, we also, therefore, are able to bring in a lot of clarity to the stuff around us. And with that clarity, we bring in a lot of structure around us. And this is the fun part, because most of the time, nobody questions assumptions. Nobody really goes beyond the obvious. Philosophers, because they question, because they want rigor, they are able to bring in that clarity and are able to bring in some structure thinking. And lastly, while it may not show in my personality at this point in time, mark my words, because you have seen such wisdom through books, through conversation, through philosophers' biographies, you can be stoic under pressure. You will be the last person to lose temper and bad mouth and curse and everything. You will absorb, you will stay poised, and you will be able to reason. And that's a virtue when the world is full of complexity and ambiguity and uncertainty and volatile all around. You can be still functioning while staying stoic. Imagine that. Philosophy gives. Well, so these are some virtues. Because of your orientation, you are likely to pick it up. And believe me, these are 5 things which will stand you in good stead in all kind of corporate setups. So, and I'm like still living and happy. So you can imagine that it really works, and it will continue to work. And lastly, I want to leave you with some things which you can do, whether you are from philosophy or not. Few things, say yes to experience. If there was one such occasion which I have to pin down to where I am today in 2022, it was because I said to one yes. Just when I was about to finish my PhD, I was frantically looking out for jobs. And it was not easy. Just because I was from IIT didn't make it easy for me to get a job. In that time, there was an opening in a place in Ahmedabad at that point in time, which is called Eklavya School. One of the most fascinating concepts about education, it was in Ahmedabad. I went there, and when I was sitting with their director at that point in time, and I remember he asking me, "So you are here, but what is it you really want to do?" I said, "I want to do philosophical counseling." He said, "Why are you sitting here? Go meet this person in Ahmedabad, and I think you will be done." That one chance. And I actually, because I was in Ahmedabad, he got it all fixed for me. Next day, I go and meet the dean at that point in time, Sangara Parik. It was sorted. Because I said yes to that one experience. Let me just go to Ahmedabad and see. So if that is that one occasion which I kind of backtrack, that would be that one yes that I said. So I will also tell you all, say yes to some experience. Things will fall in. Do before judging. Why do I say do before judging? Because many times we fall into that rut of doing. Somebody says something and you say, no, but this, no, but that, I don't know what will be. Fine. Those are all probabilities and possibilities. How about just doing it and figuring it out whether what you predicted for yourself really is the case? And this is something where I would still call it, the whole thing about, just doing it. Whether I pass or fail, I did not know. The whole UGC exam. That time we had some question papers in UGC. I remember back 2 years of UGC papers I would go through and say, oh my God, general knowledge. Out of all things, I will have to study general knowledge and math. I struggled. But I said, just let me take a stab at it. Who knows? So I did it before I started judging. Be a go-giver. Why be a go-giver? Today, when I'm sitting here and doing a lot of review of the content products that we create at FocusU Engage over here, if I trace this back, this had to do a lot with the fact that there were PhD theses, economics, psychology, geography, English. I was reviewing my seniors' PhD thesis before they submitted it to their guides. It didn't bother me. I only took it up as an opportunity to learn. Today, those kind of checks that I did then, it has helped me now, because now I know what exactly a content piece should look like, what clarity in a sentence means. But I started very early on. I that time did not see any economic thesis. Why should I correct somebody's economics? But I took a chance. And it was fun. They didn't realize that, I was picking up a mistake which they had taken for granted, that this is how it is. So fun that was. Last one. Network. And I have put the word diverse in brackets, especially for a reason. Diverse is not to be understood simply people coming from diverse disciplines. I mean diversity in terms of nationalities, in terms of age, in terms of the jobs that they do, in terms of the hobbies that they enjoy, or for that matter, people who have different skills from. Pick them up, go to them, learn from them, have them in your life. These are people who should be complimenting you at all stages. I had, very interestingly, I had some very elderly folks in my life when I was in my career all through. And that worked as an advantage for me. Whether it was Wipro, whether it was Ahmedabad, whether it was later on Roorkee or Madras, wherever. All those elderly people gave me a wealth of knowledge, and that has probably helped me to kind of see things much faster than I would have otherwise. But the one thing that I did was kept technology close to me. At my time, I did not have, but that didn't mean that I became one of those few people who said, oh my God, technology, really? Oh my God, so much to learn. I didn't say that. Of course, I didn't end up doing programming, but if by technology you mean coding and all, of course, I didn't pick that up. But definitely, I did not shy away from doing programs or taking up some kind of, technology-based intervention just to get my craving for being in the facilitation field and in the L&D field new. And EdTech at this point in time is one of the most rocking industries. And how do I know about this? Because of the diversity that I made part of, right? Yeah. So with that, run about what it means to be a philosopher in a corporate world and the effort and the kind of, work that you need to do around. I have kind of spelled it out somewhat for you. I hope I have been in time for us. So that's it from my side, and a big thank you. And we'll have some questions, want to kind of, take a break. I leave it up to Professor Koshi. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajshri, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. It was thoroughly exhilarating and thought-provoking. We'll now have the question answer session moderated by Mr. Akash.
Yes.
Over to you, Akash. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, Sia, and thank you very much, Dr. Rajshri, for the amazing presentation. The session is now open for questioning. You can either type your question in the chat box or raise your hand and ask your question yourself. If you type the question, I will read out the question to Dr. Rajshri. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and read out, say your question, ask your question yourself. Thank you. The session is open for questioning.
And before anybody really raising questions, let me just inform Dr. Rajshri that with us also are academics like Professor V.V. Kamath, whom I was mentioning earlier.
Yes.
And also another friend of mine from Hyderabad who, like you, took a U-turn from philosophy to counseling and psychology and very successfully doing it. I could see Dr. Saujanya here with us. So,
hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes. Welcome.
So, hi Rajshri.
Hello, sir. How are you?
How are you? I mean, in fact, I saw the the WhatsApp message from Koshi, and your name looked familiar. It's a long time no see, so I really lost your track. I mean, where did you go after your Wipro Mission 10X? I
yes. I did some meandering, sir, and then
so it's really, I mean, I joined little late. I had a little issue with my browser, but I could get most of it. And your journey has been really fascinating. I mean, there are very few who can make through this, so many U-turns and then still kicking and making it. So where are you now? I mean, I didn't get that. Maybe you have said that in the beginning. Where are you?
I am with FocusU Engage, sir.
Yeah, but where are you located now?
Bangalore.
Bangalore. Oh, great. Yes. Yeah. So then we can get to meet you sometime.
Oh, yes. Lovely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So do you conduct, attend, I mean, when you are invited, do you give talks?
Yes.
As your company, I mean, it allows you to do all these freelance right?
Yes, yes, they are. They really understand the academic inclination that I'm still, not able to get over. So they really allow me. Even for today's talk, they are like all the best, and let us know how it goes. And all of that.
So you have recorded the session?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I have your email. Maybe
Yes.
I'll request you to send me the link.
Perfect. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That.
In fact, one of the points that you made about teaching versus publication. In fact, I also strongly felt that publication and research is a different ball game, and not everybody is for it. But in academics, we are often forced into it, and I feel sometimes we don't do a good job of publication, and on the account of publication, we don't do good job of teaching either. Anyway, nice to hear you. I mean, if you happen to come to Goa, please, I mean, no, your parents are still there, right?
Yes, they are. They are.
Great. Yeah. Okay,
absolutely,
I mean,
sir. Sure, sir. Yes, yes. Thank you for bringing that point up, sir, because I still feel that, and that used to ingest that I used to say, if everybody is going to publish, who is there, who is going to read it? So I'll be the reader, you be the publisher. That's how I used to kind of, seriously think at one point in time that, yes, somebody should be there to read at least.
Yeah. So you often see in the conferences, people just want to read out their paper and they disappear. They are not interested in listening to what others are saying.
Because it is such a check mark even in your CV, and I felt that I was not being the authentic self. So.
Unfortunately, we are getting into that now. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
If I may continue, Professor VVK, I mean, unfortunately, the new, system of evaluation is increasingly moving towards it, sadly.
Very true. In fact, I have criticized it. In fact, we wrote one article, me and Professor Ranade from IIT Bombay, did not get published. We wanted to write in the newspaper that why are we asking engineering college teachers to do research? Let them do good teaching. Right. Let's find out ways by which we can evaluate them based on the teaching and promote them, right? So unfortunately, nobody's interested in listening. We are mimicking what the Westerners are doing.
I agree. And you bring out such a strong point that let them focus on teaching, because now when I do a lot of hiring, and when I see my husband who is into the technology space, when they do a lot of hiring, and part of the hiring is you assess concepts and fundamentals and everything. Largely, the fundamentals are all skewed. Yes. Literally, it is such a sad state that people, even when they come with nice, wonderful background, of pedigree and everything, fundamentals are sad.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe if I want to kind of do a cause and effect kind of thing, is because those who actually enjoy teaching and want to kind of break it down and make it very easy, they are not given that. And then they will pay the same amount of money to go to either a Khan, probably a Byju's, and then go to say, Vedantu, and then they will probably go to different companies to do online learning. Imagine that.
Yeah. So I have your email ID. I'll keep in touch since you are in the tech. It's interesting.
Okay. Yes, yes. Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Akash, is there anything on the chat? Are you following?
Yes, sir, but there are no questions.
But I'm sure there would be more. I mean, even
Karthik has raised his hand, sir.
Yes.
Karthik, you can go on, ask your question.
Thank you, Akash. Thank you, Dr. Rajshri. It was for sharing your journey. It was, I could relate to so many of what you said, because I kind of took an opposite turn than what you have taken.
Okay.
So I was an associate in the corporate field, and then I came to philosophy. And yeah, so like just one point which I wanted to ask you was when you mentioned about the horizontal expansion, and you spoke about becoming a billable person. So like when I was in the industry, I found it to be a little dehumanizing because then you became just a resource person. And in my particular project, there was a friend of mine who was half resource, which means they were working in two different applications. So this person was a half resource, and every time you hear, our clients, like refer to her to me. She was a friend of mine, but whenever the client mentions, they ask about this half resource, and I'm doing an air quote here, half resource. So when it happens, I saw it as like pretty much, even though I did not have a background in philosophy, then I always found it to be a little, dehumanizing. You don't see this person as, they don't even know this person's name. In fact, some things were going on that, the clients were kept in the shadows. Like they were thinking that some other person was working in this role, but somebody else was working. So things like that were happening. So like, what I wanted to ask you was like, have you had this kind of, have you like, having a background in philosophy and trying to make informed decisions in the field of the corporate field, using this background of philosophy is different, but not having a background in philosophy and then feeling this dehumanization or feeling this alienation is a different thing, and then you move to philosophy or some other, that's a different thing. But having a background in philosophy, have you felt like, I'm pretty sure that you would have, being in a leadership role, you would have come across this being, people being addressed as a resource, and being a mere number or things like that. So has this affected your decision making in any way?
Okay, nice question. Again, I'll fall back on the orientation I've had and objectivity, looking at things with reason. And largely also because I later on specialized in philosophy of language. I did understand. So if I put semantics and understanding that, to survive in this community or a society, a lot of semantics is at play. And I could twist, if I go by Wittgenstein's, meaning lies in use. And I realized very quickly that while, the word in itself or these, connotations in itself could be very, boorish in some sense, like, half resource, I get it. But because I looked at from a lens of semantics, because I looked at from a lens of reason, that yes, every context will have its own set of semantics and own ways of reference. And I could operate with reason. And for me, I was also under the spell, so to speak, of Ayn Rand, who kind of vouched for objectivity. And if I could look at things objectively, well, this is an IT scenario, this is a corporate world, this is their, their way of language. This was their community language. I kind of felt it was okay. I did not put an additional layer of, understanding on it. I accepted it the way it was, and then I made my own journey around it. So for me, in fact, I got a new semantics around it. I felt, this is something very interesting. Could that also, imagine now, okay, I have learned Dasein. I have been through the existential philosophy. And now I'm doing corporate philosophy, where the person becomes billable, from Dasein to being billable. But then it's all semantics in my head. And I reasoned with it. So for me, it stayed at reason level. And that's why it kind of, so to speak, easy to kind of, enjoy it and marvel at the newness of it. I don't know, Karthik, if this was in any way, the answer you were looking for or has helped you, but this was my state at this point in time, at that point in time.
Okay.
Aditi has raised her hand.
Yes.
Aditi, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Akash. I would just like to continue what Karthik just said, because I also made a few U-turns. I also come from an engineering background. I have my bachelor's in engineering. Then I went for Sanskrit, master's in Sanskrit.
Okay.
And now I'm doing my PhD in philosophy. But I want to go for the other side of the perspective. And when I face this, and few of my friends who have made such turns, they face it. It is at the time of acquiring a job, getting a job. Sometimes the people who interview you, they feel that you are hopping around and you're not good with something, or you're just not dedicated enough, or those kind of negative perspectives come in play. And I mean, how to deal with that, how to overcome that, and how to convince them that you did what you did out of because you were good at it and you were comfortable with it, and not because you just wanted to give up and run away from something. So yeah, that is what I want to.
Yeah, so one of the privileges, though I started the conversation saying I did not have the privileges, one of the kindness bestowed on me was I did not have a lot of financial responsibilities to take care of back home. And other responsibilities also for that. So it was kind of okay for me to toggle between different scenarios and jobs and everything. So kind of made it a little easy for me. But did the rest of the world ever question my decisions? No. Did they say that, do you really want to make a career out of anything? I said yes, because I was very serious about career. I did not just want to have a job. If you want a job, you can stay in one place for, 10, 15 years and, incrementally move towards. It is like stock market. Career is like a stock market. You have to take some risks if you want exponential results. But I can stay in a fixed deposit kind of a scenario. I will get some X percentage. I will move. But if I want from 3x to 15x, so I did stock market with my career. It worked. But the rest of the world, somewhere, again, whether they questioned, at least not to my face, they did not question. But I was very sure I want to make a career. And in my head, I always distinguish between three things. There is a job, there is a career, and there is a calling. I don't have a calling, I feel. And I don't want to be in a job. So I stood there and I kind of want to. And that's, that leap or that thing that you want to do. Take a chance, who knows where you will reach. And my own personal philosophy, but Aditi, at the end of it, I'm not answerable to anybody. I know it comes out very arrogant at some point in time, but in my hostel, I had that one picture on my board. And this time, you will all hate me if I told you what was there, but anyway, I'll take a risk. On my hostel door, I had this one chart which mentioned, I'm not here to oblige anybody. I don't know, I became like the black sheep, but because it's my career, I will take the shots. That kind of. But yeah, what was the only good thing was no financial responsibilities to worry about. That is one big thing I had.
Yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, we have two questions in the chat box.
Yes.
I'll read out Sia ma'am's question first.
Yes.
She says, thank you, Dr. Rajshri. I think it was a great session. I could completely connect to everything, like doing away with things you do not want to do in order to know what you want to do. Sounds like the neti way of reaching reality. The desire to do something else, acknowledging it and being open about it. And I guess that eternal question of teaching versus research, which is always at play, and be the glad fly of your life was a wonderful takeaway. I was intrigued by the idea of philosophical counseling Could you say a little more about the same?
Right. Thank you, Sia. And during my PhD times, I had a little bit of a personal crisis. And that time I really did not know what to do, because everybody in your own department or people from other departments who were doing PhD at that point in time, I thought they would not understand. And that's when I started to read some kind of self-help books. And that's when kind of crossed about something like, can I reach out to another philosopher to help me think through? And that's when I encountered this wonderful concept called philosophical counseling. The whole idea was psychological counseling was where the whole assumption of psychological counseling is that there is something wrong with the mind or the system.
Know about yourself, your problems, your issues, how well you are able to deal with them or handle them, and then the next step will come about is the philosophical counseling, like how the decision making process, or whatever you can say, the critical thinking and creative thinking aspect she said about the 5 virtues of philosophical philosophers. So I feel they go hand in hand. It's not I mean, you can integrate both of them when you have to, I mean, in your life, like when you're going ahead in your life. That's what I feel. As she rightly pointed out, like, who was the one who was asking that question? Akash, I guess, that he said that in corporate, you feel like half resource, dehumanizing and all. And she rightly pointed out that when we are doing our philosophy, we are trained to see things in objectively and not take anything personal. That's where there is a difference between doing philosophy and then shifting to other areas of life, and then people taking a U-turn from other sciences, pure sciences, and coming to philosophy. That is the difference I feel. And I could completely resonate with Dr. Rajshri. My life journey is also somewhat like that only.
Thanks, Saujanya, for that input and clarification. Yeah, I think Rajshri is now back, so you can. Yeah. Thanks, Saujanya.
Welcome.
Nice to hear you, Saujanya. Sorry about suddenly happened, like when some internet just vanished. But yes, I will. I'm sorry if it kind of put you all off in some situation. But coming back to philosophical counseling, it was very clear that sometimes I want some partner to think through like a Socrates with me. I don't want somebody, because nothing is kind of, difficult for me from a psychological point of view. I just need some clarity with concepts. So the starting point of philosophical counseling is the premise that there is, your inability to cope with something is because you are lacking clarity. And that clarity can come with questions, that can come with, a Socratic method of conversation. It comes with rigorously kind of, delving into something. And that's what philosophical counseling was for a long, long time. So if you want, yes, Socratic dialogue, absolutely. So there are a lot of, Marinov is there. One of the best books that I have encountered as part of my philosophical counseling journey was Plato, not Prozac. And Prozac is an antidepressant. And that title has been so emancipating for me in that one sense. And the more clarity I got, I realized that, yes, I'm able to now function with the fogginess all gone, because somebody has helped you to think through things. So anytime you want to pick up that book, Plato, not Prozac, you can just take that up. And there is one other book which has been my favorite, and something which really reminds me of how we use logic in life. So it is called Logic for Everyday Life. Elliot Cohen is the name of the author. Everyday logic is what it is. I'm either going logic first or logic second. But Elliot Cohen is your professor's, the author's name. You can just them out.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
We have one more question, ma'am, from Mr.
Yes,
Sanket Revankar in the chat box. I'll read it out.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you tell us more about your edtech products or other products?
Okay, very nice. So I don't know if you have had a chance to explore a lot of these technology products that makes it very easy to learn. So what are the different ways in which you learn? So one is, of course, you watch movies. The other is probably you read books, you do conversations and stuff like that. The other is through games. The other is through business simulations. Now, whether it is a game or a simulation, what happens is you add a layer of technology on top of it. I'll give you a simple example of, and I'm sure many of you would have played, and I'm not talking about games like Temple Run and Angry Bird, okay? these are different kinds of games. These are not for learning, these are purely for entertainment. Now, learning games, we typically do in some of our training programs, what is known as a tower building exercise, where people actually have old newspapers and some duct tape and scissors and everything. And then we give them a lot of constraints under which certain teams would create a tower, the tallest tower and whatever it is in a couple of minutes and things like that. Now, that is a physical environment. Now you imagine doing a similar activity, but only through certain clicks. So imagine you're playing a game, same game, but absolutely devoid of any kinesthetic activity around it. And then every click, for that matter, is coded at the back end. That if you take this action, then this is the consequence. If you take this selection and this decision, this is the kind of, rating that you will get. And all of it is at the back end getting computed and kind of collected. After you finish this same thing, the tower making exercise or whatever it is, at the back end, a report is generated for you. Imagine that scenario. It documents every action you took, every decision you took, its consequences, and then collates it all and then kind of brings it. This is how you performed in the game. That is one kind, pure game, and then the learning around it. So then we say, okay, you took this action, therefore what it means. You did not kind of, go about taking this path to taking this decision. So what does it mean? And then there is that uncovering of learning that happens through experience. Now, there is a business simulation on the other side, which is, again, there is a layer of technology on a typical everyday workplace scenario. But again, it has a layer of technology. So the characters are animated, the consequences are thought about, the entire kind of scenario is put into some kind of a technology frame, and then every time you take an action, there is some kind of backend that gets processed. So one is a game, and then you extract the learning. The second is a scenario which has a technology layer around it, and you take the protagonist's role in it, and then you kind of take decisions and everything, and then you extract learning from it. So the entire edtech products that we kind of see in the market at this point in time are largely around experiential learning, but which does not require you to do, in physical reality. You do it in virtual reality. But the learning is equally comprehensive and intense. So if you ever get a chance, probably you could just go through some of these, go around and check these out. There are lots and lots of products out there. But currently for my company, this is something which is WIP, that is called work in progress. That's something which we are kind of building around it. How we can bring in those technological layers to make learning experiential. So it's
Thank you so much, madam. Madam, I just wanted to add that you are like not the Gargi, but Yajnavalkya of modern times. Especially your method, what Miss Sia said, the neti method. When I just got reminded when he was trying to explain Gargi about Brahman, and then he used not this, not that. So you are the Yajnavalkya of the modern times. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Not Gargi.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, at least something right? Knowledge is not always through knowing exactly, but also knowing like not this neti. I think yes. It's easier for me to not
Thank you, ma'am.
Pick up on that. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, ma'am Elizabeth Bara had raised her hand. I would please request her to ask her question.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Thank you for such an inspiring. You have a. I'd like to thank you for. I felt some parts of your story. I felt I had a little connect to it, and unlike you and some other students, like what Karthik and Aditi also said, you all are from engineering background. I come from sociology background. I'm more closer to social sciences.
Yes.
But even then, when I was making my choice to come to philosophy to do my PhD, I got many negative remarks, and somebody even told me you're committing an academic suicide. so it was really all that negativity and all, but still I'm sometimes I feel I'm like a person who if I want something, I'll just whatever risk it takes, like I just go and do it. And this is your talk today was really reassuring for me. It was like it gave me more power, like, because in between I do feel like what I'm doing or something. But it was really good. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Sure, Elizabeth. And in fact, this has been one of the things which I've always told my students also, that sometimes when we are faced with a choice, it's not about the pros and the cons. It's like with whatever choices you'll make, and the consequences are so unpredictable. If you can make that peace with whatever unpredictable consequences that I may land with, I will be okay. If that's the thought process that you can go with, because many times we do a lot of with our choices that log kya kahenge, will this give me money, will I really become successful in the end? And you will never know till you do it, right? So that's why I think that whole 9K tag is very great. Just do it sometimes, but be okay with whatever consequences you reach. I could have been in misery. But because I wanted it so bad, I gave it my all in, and that's when I said, go big. Start small, go big. So nobody gets beaten up for hard work, right? You some very great hard work. So thanks, Elizabeth. Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Are there any more questions? If there are any more questions, you can please ask this question. Ask the question now, or you can correspond with Ma'am Rajshri, Dr. Rajshri.
Just one comment, not much of a question. I was just trying to think what was the topic that Rajshri was doing as part of her research. If I remember correctly, I mean at IIT Bombay, I think it was on vagueness, if I remember correctly, So from philosophy of language, the concept of vagueness, I would like to know now as a practicing, philosopher in the corporate world, how much of that vagueness is there, or is there a kind of transparency and clarity coming from the corporate world?
Yes, a beautiful question. And Elizabeth, again, there is this one memory that was brought back to me with Professor Kosh's question. And when I announced, after 1 year of coursework, I announced that I want to work in vagueness. And everybody said like this, all my panel members, oh my God, we will have to deal with something big. And everybody was like, are you sure you want to do? But that time I was so smitten by the whole psoriasis paradox. And anytime that you want to kind of take a stab at it, that time in India, there was nobody who was working on this topic. So very fascinating and everything. And but to answer Professor Koshi, your question, what has therefore helped me is two things. One, there is no escape from vagueness. People will never be exacting in their use of words. There will always be that nebulous, ways in which people communicate. So I have come to accept that. So in corporate world also, after something, they will say, you know what I mean. They have not clearly told me what they mean. But, they expect that, and that's when I am always reminded that, yes, vagueness is the way it is defined in my thesis. But yes, I always think conversations are always nebulous. I have accepted. The second thing, which is the most important thing, I have come to appreciate specificity so much. And that has helped me in many of my decisions, whether it is to do with hiring of people, whether it is to do with money matters, the decisions around which I am answerable to my company, if it is to do with whether I want to work with a particular vendor or not work with a vendor. Why? Because now I choose to question people more because I need more specific answers. So one side is acknowledgement and the other side is what therefore I do not get, how I make it happen. And that's move from vagueness to specific. So both of that has helped me. One in relationship, one in decision. But the pragmatic
here.
Yes,
That's what you do when you're doing philosophical counseling and even psychological counseling.
So
from general to specific, you keep that is Socratic dialogue, in fact.
Exactly. See, this is wonderful. But if I have to reveal my entire title of my thesis, because I'm a pragmatist at the heart of everything, the title is also like that: embracing vagueness, a pragmatic approach. So
Thank you, Rajshri. Yes, now I get it fully. I remember it was okay.
But you're right. Yes.
So I just raised this because sometimes our own students they think that these kinds of uncertainties, vagueness, etc. It's part of the philosophical way of thinking and academic kind of life. But just wanted to reiterate that. Well, you are going to encounter it everywhere.
Yeah, and I could do the topic only, which is like.
Thank you. For that. Yeah. Thanks, Virginia, for being there.
And I had a tough time, Professor Koshi, going back to the memory, tough time to explain people, why I chose it. But then I was smitten. Who can anything more than that? Oh, Lord. Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to point out to all the participants that all the participants can reach out to ma'am or correspond with ma'am with her email. Her email is put in the chat box by Miss Vidya Mary George. I'll read out the email. If you want, you can take it down. Her email is rajashri@focus.com. If anyone has any more questions, please reach out to me. Thank you very much, ma'am. I hand it over back to Sia, ma'am.
Thank you, Akash. I would now request Ms. Dipanki to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sia. Good evening, everyone. On the behalf of the School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies, Goa University, I am happy to propose the vote of thanks for the lecture. We are all happy and grateful for the successful of this program. We are also grateful to our chief guest, the speaker Rajshri Jobanputra, for her valuable lecture on leaving the ivory tower. It has given a lot of food to our thought. I thank Professor Kosi, Dean, School of Sanskrit, Philosophy and Indic Studies. Your support always pushes us to forward in our project. I thank all the faculty members from and outside of Goa University. Thank you for talking off your schedule and supporting us in our events. I thank all the participants from and outside of Goa University. Your presence makes those talks a success. And I lastly thank all the research scholars from the school. It's because of your participation we can successfully organize such talks. And special thanks to those who would help in designing the poster, event promotion, and coordination. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dipanki. So before wrapping up, I would just like to tell everyone that the recording of the lecture will be posted on our school's YouTube channel, which is Philosophy at Goa University. And we will be back again next month with another online guest lecture. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And Vidya, when I shared the poster with my colleagues here, they had great liking for it. So I can't pass on the virtual thumbs ups to you, but yes, I thought I'd let you know they really like the poster that
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure. And if I could be of any help and assistance going forward, you all will know Goa University is very special to me. So feel free to reach out to me in small ways or the other. I would be happy to be of help. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dr.
Thank you.
Listening to you after many, many years.
Yes.
And once again, let me say that this was, gratis, on the part of Dr. Rajshri. So next time when you invite, please do mind that Dr. Rajshri also represents a professional, organization. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much and see you all soon. And thank you, ma'am. See you next time when I am there. And Professor Koshi, thank you for inviting me. This was very unusual for me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Professor Koshi.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Sir Koshi.
Bye. I am stopping the recording now. Is that fine, right?
Yes, yes.
No. I'll see you.